Welcome to the Retro Review, where history comes alive. Every event has a story. Every decision has consequences. Every chapter of the past has shaped the world we live in today. Today we travel back to June 6th, 1944, the day that changed the course of World War II forever. This is the story of D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in human history, and the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany in Western Europe. So sit back, and let's journey through history together. Let's begin. The day that opened the road to Nazi Germany's defeat. D-Day, June 6th, 1944. Before sunrise, the largest amphibious invasion in human history began. More than 150,000 Allied soldiers crossed the English Channel toward the coast of Nazi-occupied France. Thousands of ships stretched across the sea. Aircraft filled the skies. Paratroopers had already landed behind enemy lines. For many of the young men aboard those landing craft, this would be the longest day of their lives. Some would never reach the shore. Others would survive to help change the course of history. But if this invasion failed, the war in Europe could continue for years. The world held its breath as Operation Overlord began. This is the story of D-Day. By 1944, the Second World War had been raging for nearly 5 years. Nazi Germany controlled much of Western Europe. Countries like France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Norway, and others had fallen under German occupation. In the east, the Soviet Union was fighting brutal battles against the German army, suffering millions of military and civilian casualties. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin repeatedly urged Britain and the United States to open a second front in Western Europe. He hoped it would force Germany to divide its forces and reduce pressure on the Eastern Front. Meanwhile, Britain had endured years of bombing but remained unconquered. The United States had entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Since then, American industry had transformed into a powerful engine of war, producing ships, aircraft, tanks, and supplies on an enormous scale. The Allies understood one thing: Germany could not be defeated without returning to mainland Europe. That mission became known as Operation Overlord. Planning the invasion took months. Military leaders from Britain, the United States, Canada, and other Allied nations worked together to design the largest amphibious assault ever attempted. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was chosen as the supreme Allied commander. Every detail mattered: the tides, the weather, the moonlight, the timing of airborne landings, the movement of thousands of ships. Even a small mistake could cost tens of thousands of lives. But defeating Germany required more than soldiers. It required deception. The Allies launched one of the greatest military deception campaigns in history. They created fake armies using inflatable tanks, wooden aircraft, and dummy landing craft. Fake radio messages filled the airwaves. Double agents supplied false information to German intelligence. The goal was simple: convince Adolf Hitler that the main invasion would take place at Pas de Calais, the narrowest point between Britain and France. The deception worked. Many German commanders expected the attack somewhere other than Normandy. As a result, valuable German forces remained away from the real landing beaches. On the evening of June 5th, 1944, thousands of Allied soldiers boarded ships across southern England. Many wrote final letters to their families. Some quietly prayed. Others sat in silence. No one knew what the next day would bring. The weather had almost forced the invasion to be delayed. Strong winds and rough seas made conditions dangerous. After studying the forecasts, Eisenhower made one of the most important decisions of the war. He gave the order the invasion would proceed. Shortly after midnight, thousands of paratroopers from the United States and Britain jumped into the darkness over Normandy. Their mission was to capture bridges, destroy roads, and block German reinforcements before the beach landings began. Many landed far from their intended drop zones. Some became isolated, others quickly formed small groups and continued fighting. Despite the confusion, they disrupted German defenses and helped prepare the way for the invasion. As dawn approached, Allied warships moved into position. Heavy guns opened fire against German bunkers along the coast. Bombers attacked defensive positions. Then the landing craft began moving toward the beaches. The invasion was divided across 5 landing zones: Utah Beach, Omaha Beach, Gold Beach, Juno Beach, Sword Beach. Each beach had its own objectives. Each would face different levels of resistance. At Utah Beach, American forces landed with relatively fewer casualties than expected. Strong currents pushed many landing craft away from their planned locations, but this unexpected mistake placed several units in less heavily defended areas. Commanders quickly adapted and pushed inland. Gold, Juno, and Sword Beaches saw fierce fighting, but British and Canadian forces steadily advanced despite mines, machine gun fire, and coastal defenses. The most difficult battle unfolded at Omaha Beach. High cliffs overlooked the shoreline. German machine gun nests were protected by concrete bunkers. Barbed wire and underwater obstacles covered the beach. As the first American landing craft reached the shore, many soldiers faced intense enemy fire before they could even leave their boats. Some landing craft were destroyed, others filled with water. Many soldiers carrying heavy equipment drowned before reaching land. Those who survived struggled across open sand with little protection. The first waves suffered devastating losses. For a time, the invasion at Omaha appeared close to failure. Small groups of soldiers began climbing the cliffs wherever they could find a path. They attacked German positions from unexpected directions. Naval destroyers moved dangerously close to shore to fire directly into enemy defenses. Slowly, bunker after bunker fell. By the afternoon, American troops had secured a fragile foothold. The cost had been enormous. Throughout the day, thousands of aircraft continued flying missions over Normandy. Fighter planes protected the invasion fleet. Transport aircraft delivered supplies. Bombers struck roads and bridges to slow German reinforcements. Meanwhile, engineers cleared mines and obstacles from the beaches so more troops and equipment could land. The battle did not end on the beaches. Once ashore, Allied soldiers fought through villages, fields, and thick hedgerows that gave German defenders natural protection. Every mile forward required determination. German commanders struggled to understand whether Normandy was the main invasion or only a diversion. Because of the successful Allied deception campaign, Adolf Hitler delayed releasing several armored divisions that might have launched a stronger counterattack. Those lost hours proved critical. By the end of June 6th, more than 150,000 Allied troops had landed in Normandy. Although many objectives had not yet been fully achieved, the invasion had succeeded. The Allies now had a foothold in occupied France. Over the following weeks, hundreds of thousands more soldiers, vehicles, tanks, and supplies crossed the English Channel. The Battle of Normandy continued throughout the summer. The fighting remained brutal. Entire towns were destroyed. Both soldiers and civilians suffered greatly. In August 1944, Allied forces liberated Paris. German armies began retreating toward their own borders. For Nazi Germany, the balance of the war had permanently shifted. D-Day did not end the Second World War, but it opened the long-awaited Western Front that helped bring the conflict in Europe closer to its conclusion. Less than a year later, in May 1945, Nazi Germany surrendered. Victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands of Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing on D-Day alone. German forces also suffered heavy casualties. French civilians were caught in the middle of the fighting and paid a tragic price. Today, the beaches of Normandy are peaceful. Cemeteries overlooking the sea remind visitors of the sacrifices made by people from many nations. Rows of white crosses and stars of David mark the resting places of those who never returned home. D-Day remains one of history's most significant military operations. It demonstrated the importance of planning, cooperation, deception, and courage under unimaginable pressure. Without the success of Operation Overlord, the war in Europe might have lasted much longer, with even greater loss of life. The decisions made during those hours on June 6, 1944, helped shape the future of Europe and the modern world. History records what happened, but every generation asks the same question. If you had been one of the leaders that day, would you have launched the invasion despite the risks? Or would you have waited for another opportunity? Share your thoughts in the comments, and join us next time for another chapter in history's turning points.